All right, so I did a video last week talking about Baker Mayfield is a top 10 quarterback. And a lot of people also want to know, where does that mean he ranks amongst all the other quarterbacks in the NFL? So what I thought I'd do was rank all of the quarterbacks, do a tier list. We're going to go all 32 quarterbacks, break them down, talk about them, put them in different tiers. This one, it's going to be interesting. But before I get into that, I want to make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, ding that notification bell so you can be notified when I upload a ton of content coming in the off season. Also, I want to give a great big old shout out to my Dog Check tier Patreon members. And as always, I start with Michael Matique, Rob Farron, Kyle Stouffer, Lukey from Munich, David Roth, J Guy 101, Musty Taco, Joe Bobby, Keith Kirkhack, Brad Calbo, Daylon W, James McGinty, Arenda Hall, Rex Kaufman, Chad Gimme, David Molinado, Andrew Sadejo, Dylan Hill, Josh Bendor, Eric Green, Jaleel Salim Jr., Martha Krusna, Mark M, TJ Showman, Stuart Moore, Bobo Regretti, Anthony O, David Arndt, Robert Jermaine Jr., Dave Mike May, John Cummings, Andrew Hirsch, Hundo Magnifico, Paul Wilcox, Curtis Bayer, Batman, Rush Sharir, Barack Kumar, John Alver, Beerman 069, Masayua, Buds of Roland, James Nemo, Mac House, Reeve Hertz, Philip Wilcoxon, Marie Vivert, CK, Keith Anderson, Sean Barron, Gakus Pisano, Dom Gazzulo, Nick Nasty, Ian Whitaker, Colin 216, Anthony Latham, Christian, Matt Bond, Dave Strong, Michael Stone, Soul Train, Charles Work, Billy, Michael Holden Acton, Moose Gentry, Patrick F. Austin Z, Mark Burnett II, Andre Griffin, Otis Wolf, IT Rex, Greg Ehlers, Austin Bolin, Jesus Serrano, Chris Fones, Picktown Brown Backers, Mark Kahn, Max Out Dojo, and Water Bear Marketing. Again, guys, thank you so much for the support. It's been awesome. It's been amazing. Thank you so much. Now, let's rank these quarterbacks. All right, y'all, let's rank these quarterbacks. We're going to start with the NFC side because I have a point to prove about the NFC and how lopsided the quarterback situation is when it comes to NFC, AFC. So we're going to start with Tom Brady. Obviously, still goes in elite. You can argue whether his play this year was elite, but if you just, with Tom Brady, with some guys, it's unavoidable, their body of work. And when he just won the Super Bowl this year, he's elite, man. I know people still hate on Tom Brady, but it's a losing battle at this point. Teddy Bridgewater. Yeah, man, he's almost at seen enough. He's a backup. He's one of those guys that can come close to being a starter, but if you start him for a whole season, you will be frustrated. If you start him for 5 games, you will be happy. That's just who Teddy Bridgewater has turned out to be so far in his NFL career. It really doesn't look like it's going to change. Russell Wilson, he had a down year for Russell Wilson, still a franchise quarterback. Who's this? Mitch Trubisky. All right, I'm tempted to go seen enough, but I'm going to go back up. Here's why. Mitch hasn't been as bad as people pile on him for being. He just has the unfortunate label of being the guy who got drafted before Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson in that 2017 draft. And he's the quarterback that got drafted before those two. No, he's not a starting quarterback. No, he's not going to be a consistent starting quarterback. And yeah, there are times where he looks absolutely awful. But there are also times where he can do enough. He's mobile enough to be a good backup in the NFL. One of those guys who are going to stick around for a long time in the NFL that's just going to pop up on rosters here and there. I think that's what Mitch's future is. Matt Stafford. I'm put him in starter. He's like top level starter, but he's starter. He's not franchise to me. And there was a point in his career where he definitely was franchise. Early on when he had Megatron, yeah, he was a franchise quarterback. But one thing that's happened, and I know a lot of people make a ton of excuses for Matthew Stafford and a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL, to be fair, whether he didn't have a good defense, whether you felt like his offensive line wasn't adequate. The fact of the matter is that he has had good offensive weapons his entire career. In the later part of his career, he's had a decent offensive line at the very least, and he's just not produced franchise quarterback type numbers offensively or produce results offensively that were franchise quarterback worthy. At times he looks like he could be that guy, and at times he looks like another guy out there. That's kind of been Matthew Stafford's whole deal his entire career. So that's why I'm going to put him in there. Now, is he very close to being in franchise? Yes, but he just doesn't do it consistently enough, and he's been inconsistent long enough that I think it's fair to say that. Now, I know there's a lot of Matthew Stafford defenders out there who are going to throw, hey, look, he didn't have a great offense. I think that's not true. Or he didn't have great defenses. But my question to everybody who's going to say that is, since when was it the standard that a quarterback must have a great defense, a great offensive line, and a great wide receiving core to be judged fairly? You're judged by the job you do with whoever you have around you, whether you have a ton of help, quote unquote, or don't. And judging him off of the job he's done with who he's had, whether you want to blame it on the Detroit Lions or not, it's what it is. He's been at a starter level. And if you look at, people who drafted number 1 overall, you look at what his hype was coming out of Georgia, he's been a disappointment. So that's where I'm at with Matthew Stafford. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be a popular take, but I stand by it. Then you got Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan's right. He won the MVP, though. It's kind of hard to he's barely franchise. He's been bad the last couple of years. You know what? Yeah, he's starter. I'm going to put him in starter. He's not been great the last few years, but he had that one MVP season. You would just hope to see it more consistently out of him. With him, he doesn't have the random really good games as often as Stafford does, but he has put together a better season than I think Stafford has ever put together in his entire career. So they're about the same level of quarterback, in my opinion. This next guy, Kyler Murray, more to prove. Look, I was on the Kyler Murray train for a couple of years. I'm starting to think about hopping off that train because he's just either he's being held back by Cliff Kingsbury, which is a possibility, or he's just not as good as I thought he was. The sparks are there, right? He'll look incredible running the football and throwing it. But then what happened at the end of the season, that stuff happens too, where he has all these turnovers, where he just looks like a lot of the issues with his height start to become real for, reasons that don't happen to other shorter quarterbacks. And the inconsistency in the low of that inconsistency is very concerning. Now, again, I don't like his coach, but back to the Matthew Stafford point, I can't sit here and try to make exceptions for every little thing that might go wrong in a quarterback's path. And that's why I'm going to put Kyler Murray in more to prove. And he's starting to he's at a prove it type year in year 3, similar to Baker Mayfield was last year. So maybe he has a good year, maybe he doesn't, but he has a lot to prove in his 3rd year in the NFL. And to see if Arizona wants to make him the future. Dak, I think Dak's a franchise quarterback. I like Dak a lot. I think Dak's a really good quarterback. I don't think there's much to say about Dak's status as a franchise quarterback, but I do think Dak is most definitely a franchise quarterback when healthy. We got 2 guys who I'm going to put in seen enough. Daniel Jones, I have seen enough. He fumbles a lot. He throws a ton of interceptions. He's not as productive as you would want a quarterback to be. And since he turns the ball over so often, he can't really be a backup in the NFL because you don't want a backup who's going to turn the ball over a lot. And he's not as good as a passer as like a Ryan Fitzpatrick that he can make up for it occasionally. He can't really do that. Yes, he is athletic, but that athleticism kind of gets countered by his inability to hold on to the football. So I put him in seen enough. Carson Wentz, I've seen enough. This year was so bad with Carson Wentz. And it wasn't just, he had no support, his coaching situation. No, it was all Carson Wentz. If you watch the tape, he was bad. If you look at the advanced numbers, he was bad. If you look at the regular statistics, he was bad. He had one of the worst seasons I have seen a notable quarterback have in recent memories. These interceptions, I showed you the one when he played the Cleveland Browns where he threw it to Taki. It's not even that he doesn't know the offense because he's been in the offense his entire career. It's just he seems incapable of making the right decision. He seems incapable of getting rid of the football. And he is so dangerous and reckless with the football in his hand. And when you take that on top of how nobody seems to want to play on a team led by him, it really makes you wonder what teams are seeing in him that are making them offer anything in return for Carson Wentz with that contract. My honest opinion, you have to give me 2 first-round picks to take Carson Wentz. He is a liability at this point, and I need an asset to offset that liability. That's just how I feel about Carson Wentz. And I was a person who, coming out of North Dakota State, very high on Carson Wentz. But he has played himself into this hole. Jalen Hurts, I like Jalen Hurts a lot, but even when he's really good or had his really good games in Philly, there's a ceiling. I think he's going to be a backup. He's going to be a guy who's going to be in the league forever. He just has that kind of a makeup. But I don't think he's anybody's starting quarterback kind of option there. So that's where I am with that. And is that all no, obviously Aaron Rodgers is going to be up here in elite. Aaron Rodgers still one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Has been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL for a very long time, and he will continue to be one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. Jared Goff, he is like a low-tier starter. Like, he's probably at the low end of what a starter is if Matt Stafford and Matt Ryan are the high end of what a starter is. So that's what the situation is for Jared Goff. Look, he might go to Detroit and have a resurgence. Same thing for Matt Stafford. Maybe one of these guys have a Ryan Tannehill type resurgence in them. I just don't see it right now. I'm not a big fan of Jared Goff. I don't think he's going to really thrive in Detroit. I just don't see it for him. So that's the situation. If you notice one thing, right? There's not a single young franchise, like maybe Dak, right? Dak's somebody who should be in his second deal, but he's still technically in his first contract. So Dak is probably the only extremely promising young quarterback in the NFL. And a lot of people feel like they know Dak's ceiling already, right? Everything else is just bad with the NFC. Jimmy Garoppolo, he's kind of young. He's a starter. He's better than Jared Goff. Well, I don't think he's better than Drew Brees. Yeah, he's a starter. He could do most everything. You can get to the Super Bowl with him. You're just not going to be able to rely on him to win you many games. And again, that's what separates a starter from a franchise quarterback, is being able to rely on somebody to win games. That's a big key here. Now, let's jump into these AFC quarterbacks. Let me make sure I got everybody. Nope. Alex Smith, he's a backup. He's a good backup. He's a guy who can step in there and start for you, but he should not start 16 games for you. He had a great season this year considering everything he came back from, but he should not be your starter. There was one more NFC guy, Kirk Cousins. It's Kirk Cousins' franchise. No, I'm not going to set the internet on fire. He's about right here, right? Matt Stafford, Kirk Cousins, Matt Ryan. They're all the same guy. Similar ceilings with them. You can do a lot with them. They do make your team better if you don't have a starter. And they're high quality starters. They're very good starters. I just don't think they're I can win you a game starters, and they haven't done that enough. Now, Matt Stafford, early in his career, has done that. Same thing with Drew Brees. Obviously, early in Drew Brees' career, he has done that. But at this point, what they have done recently, the last 3 years, it just hasn't been that same level with Matt Stafford, hasn't been that same level with Matt Ryan. And with Kirk Cousins, he's put up good numbers throughout his career. He's always proven to be a good starting quarterback, somebody who gets dumped on more than I feel like is necessary. And again, being a starter means you're good. And I think the guys, closer to the starter text here are very good. It's just I don't think they're franchise quarterbacks. Now, let's jump into these AFC quarterbacks. We're going to start with Sam Darnold. I've seen enough of Sam Darnold. He throws a lot of bad interceptions, panics when he gets pressure. I think he's broken. It's unfortunate, but He's at this point, we know with Cleveland Browns quarterbacks, if he's broken, he's broken. Ain't much you could do about that. Drew Lock, he's going to be a backup. Ryan Fitzpatrick, he's very popular, but he is not a starter. He is a fun backup, right? I think Teddy Bridgewater is the more consistent option, but Ryan Fitzpatrick, he's always the fun option, right? Phillip Rivers was a starter this year, similar to how Drew Brees was. Serviceable, was good at some points, was awful at others. Same thing here goes with Ben Roethlisberger. Look, I know we can clown him. I got the picture up with him crying. We can clown big man all we want. He had a tremendous start to this season, but it came crashing down tremendously at the end. And if it weren't for that, I would still say Big Ben was a franchise quarterback. But it came crashing down so hard, and it was so obviously about Ben Roethlisberger that it's not avoidable. You have to drop him a tier after that because he was just that bad at the end of the season. And all of this stuff was really on him. The 4 interceptions in the wild card. How many interceptions against Cincinnati? You know, all of these things. Look, you can be an apologist for Ben all you want, but he was awful at the end, to the point to where people in Pittsburgh who are diehard Ben Roethlisberger fans, we're sitting here talking about Mason Rudolph, and think about the level of desperation that Pittsburgh fans were at, that they actually thought Mason Rudolph could go in there and win more games than Ben Roethlisberger. He's almost had seen enough, but he put together such a good first half of the season that I'm not going to do that to him. Cam Newton, he's close to seen enough. He's pretty done, though. He's a backup at best. Maybe he can adjust. But he just looked old in New England. It looked like he was done. He looks like he's close to retirement. He can't run as well as he used to. He doesn't throw. He doesn't have the same arm strength, the same accuracy that he used to. So a lot of the things that made him, oh my God, Cam Newton, just aren't there anymore. And now he's just a really big, kind of lumbering body that can't do the things you would expect him to do. And it's starting to be a liability for him. Ryan Tannehill, he's been a franchise quarterback the last few years. I think that's pretty undeniable. Been arguably top 5 level. I think Deshaun Watson isn't here. I think I forgot to get the picture. Deshaun Watson, obviously a franchise quarterback. I don't think he's elite yet, but I do think Deshaun Watson is a franchise quarterback. Lamar Jackson, obvious franchise quarterback. More to prove, Justin Herbert, just because it's only been a season for him. Same thing goes for Joe Burrow, only like 7 or 8 games for him, but what I saw I liked. Now to a young quarterback, and I feel like these guys are in better paths right now than Kyler Murray. But Tua, I don't think he's on a better path than Kyler Murray. I think you should be concerned about Tua if you are the Dolphins. I didn't like what I saw from him. I don't think he has the arm strength necessary. The release seems slow. He doesn't seem to be reading the field well, and he just doesn't seem to be accurate enough to play football at the top level in the NFL like he did at Alabama. So I would just be worried. I've really seen enough of Dwayne Haskins. I don't know why he's on here, but I've seen enough of Dwayne Haskins. He has the same issues he had at Ohio State. He does not look like he has improved since he left Ohio State, and looks like, honestly, he has regressed. So I've seen enough. Look, he could come back, get better, and make an NFL team and have a Kurt Warner type redemption story, sure. But I don't think he's got that. The next guy, Gardner Minshew, I will put him in this same kind of level I put Teddy Bridgewater, Gardner Minshew, all these guys, I think, who could come in and win you a game. You just don't want to start them for 16 games because there comes obvious issues. Patrick Mahomes is obviously elite. I think he's the best quarterback in the NFL. I think he's the top of all the elite guys. And then you have, Baker Mayfield. He's franchise. Derek Carr. This is interesting because nobody ever talks about Derek Carr. But I think he's better than Matt Stafford. So I would put him at the top of the starter class. And again, these are all spectrums. But I would put him at the top of the starter class, in my opinion. I think that he has been pretty good maybe a little inconsistent, but pretty good. And then obviously Josh Allen is a franchise quarterback. So that's essentially my ranking. Look, the more to prove guys, they're young guys, so they don't really count here. But if you want me to go from my definitive guys that I've really seen enough of, Carson Wentz was probably the worst quarterback in football in 2020. But that's pretty much it. If you want to pause the screen right now and look at it and rank it, just know the more to prove guys don't really count. I just think these are guys who can start. You would make them the starter, but you're not sure how good they are yet. They could end up being starters. They could end up being franchise quarterbacks, but they're good enough to where they have a chance to be one of those two. So that's why they're there. So if you want to count this and rank it. But that's pretty much how I feel about where everybody is at. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. But again, guys, thank you for watching. Have a great day and have a good night.